the way I look at it is I can't be a good husband if I'm literally not in the best place, right? I can't be a good CEO of my company if I'm not in the best place. And that's what I'm trying to tell everybody is like, it's okay to take care of yourself, because if you can 10x yourself, guess what? Now your time, that 1 hour you spend with your team, you're going to 10x their day. All right, guys, welcome to another episode of Badass Clinician. Today we have an awesome guest, Bartholomew, who is the author of Conscious Coaching. Again, if you guys haven't read this book, I don't know where you've been, because this book actually changed my perspective on how to communicate with the certain type of athletes I have. And as you guys know, you follow my journey of building Mile Connects. We love working with athletes, and working with athletes has its own sets of challenges, and Brett can probably dive down more into this. And for me, it was the first time I actually realized that, like, wait, I need to meet people where they are and actually speak to them on their levels, so that way I can earn their trust, and then vice versa. They give me some rapport and we can actually work together. So I'm so excited to have Brett on this podcast, just because as PTs, as clinicians, as people in the healthcare provider, in the healthcare industry, we're not good at communicating. And the reason I say that, because I was not good at communicating. We used to talking down to people or talk at people rather than talking to people. So by us mastering our communication skill, we can actually help more people and provide more impact and change lives with our words, right? Because words matters a lot. So Brett, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Very gracious of you, and I'm looking forward to diving in, Dr. Natty. Let's roll.
Yeah, so first and foremost, we have to plug you in. He's come to New Jersey, guys. We're hosting a course. You guys know the link is already in the bio to sign up. Make sure you show up here, because this is going to be huge. But let's dive into why it's great for them to sign up. So, Brett, I know your history already, and I know you were just top high-performance coach, work with pro athletes, and you had your own journey, your own transition. Let's talk about how awesome was it to actually publish your first book?
Yeah, well, it was pretty incredible. I think it took a while for it to set in, right? And it's one of those things I had to find the words for, because it doesn't always feel awesome at the time. It feels harrowing. Yeah. You know, you're putting out something that, to give people context, I was part of an organization for a long time that I was really grateful to work for, but you were not allowed to have your own brand. You were not allowed to have anything. So when I published my first book, it was with a lot of naivete. I couldn't have a newsletter. I couldn't have a website. I couldn't do a launch. The thing, I didn't have much control over those things at the time. I was just really starting out on my own. There was also the reality that, we put a lot out there. I talked about being hospitalized for nearly a year of my life, almost dying. These were things that when I was in the performance profession, strength and conditioning, you don't really talk about, right? That's an audience that kind of puts on a lot of bravado and whatever. And so I think what was really awesome about it is, sure, accomplishing it, seeing it there. And then my editor one day calling me and being like, dude, you just outsold Tony Robbins this week. Like, wow. We were literally, and I have the screenshots to prove it, we had beat Tony Robbins and Dan Rathers on the top 100 movers and shakers. And I'm like, wait, what? And then people reaching out saying, thank you for sharing your personal story. I have one as well. And I'm not really a cheesy, I get very turned off by cheesy, overly motivational, inspirational stuff. But that was cool for me to be able to talk about a time in my life when I was at my lowest as a teenager, nearly lost my life, put that out there, and for it to be received by physical therapists, people in the military, strength coaches, business owners, just normal people saying, yeah, I had my own kind of demons. Let's talk about this more. That was probably the most rewarding thing. And just seeing people kind of rally behind us and support it when you thought, I don't know, I thought my mom would buy it and my brother would burn it. You didn't think it would take off like it did.
Yeah, it's so awesome, man. Just because, like, when you're able to actually put your thoughts on paper, to me, that's really meaningful. That means that you actually care enough to go through your whole thought process and put something down in something that it's kind of like solid, right? Once you put it on paper. So I know a lot of people that are listening to this, like, they probably have their own path that they want to write their own books, right? I published a book called The Complete Guide to ACL Rehab, just to help people who went through it, right? And for me, that was a really cool thing. It's me giving myself permission to say, hey, listen, English is my second language, but guess what? I'm still going to do this, because that's not going to stop me from helping people. So what were some of the obstacles that you had to overcome? Like that voice in your head that every time you're about to type in your keyboard every single day that you have to face it.
One was real clear. This was during a time where I really came at, and granted, conscious coaching was just a starting point. There's a point to where you can't get too technical and scientific in the book, as you know. But we talked a lot about, I want to make sure that people didn't see this just as like soft skills. Communication has been painted with a really broad brush. And in the reality, it's one of the most well-researched, empirically backed constructs there is. And not only that, humans are at the top of the food chain because we're the preeminent social animal on the planet, right? But there's so much complexity within social interaction. Right now, you and I are a primary example of a complex adaptive system. We're evolving and improvising based off what the other one says. We have no idea where it's going to go. There's equifinality to our responses. There's so much to manage. And oftentimes misunderstanding is the baseline. So to try to consolidate stuff that was research-backed, not jamming it down the reader's throat, but also made it a somewhat enjoyable read, which, I mean, in all honesty, I don't know how you feel about your book, but going back, there's, of course, this is 6 years old, this book now at this point. There's a lot I would have changed. I could have made certain parts more enjoyable. I could have made parts certain technical, but you make the book, you do the best you can. A first book should be a great conversation starter, an intro. So I think to consolidate all that, the biggest voice in my head is, I tried making the book do too much at first. My editor eventually said, hey, are you writing this like for critics, to kind of be preemptive? Or are you writing this for people that actually believe in this stuff? And I'm like, yeah, I guess I'm writing a little bit too much on both ends. And that's because, I had put my views out there publicly a lot, and strength and conditioning could be a really combative community. There's a lot of insecurity, especially because I wrote the book at 30 years old. So I did write sometimes a little bit with too much of a chip on my shoulder. So I had to quiet that. To be frank, I didn't really have the most common thing people have, imposter phenomenon. And that's not because I don't think, I suck at certain things or I couldn't get better or I'm not humble. Man, I'm just like the oldest 37-year-old, at this point, I had coached a lot of athletes. I had jumped into a lot of dense and diverse experiences. I had experience in the team and private sector, and I had done the research. So, while I certainly didn't think, oh, I got it figured out, I'll never feel that. I knew what I was talking about because I cared about this. So yeah, just try to not overwrite it. Try not to make it do too much. Try not to get too caught up in the critics, because somebody could write the perfect book today and there's still going to be people that hate it just because perception is so subjective. And if you don't make something in today's world that reflects everybody's unique situation in every moment, they just want to get mad. No, you have to have a central so what? What is the goal of this, right? What is the problem I'm trying to solve? What can I realistically fit in here? And then what do I need to maybe save for a part 2 or an online course or something else? It's a journey. It's an ecosystem. It's a suite of services. So those are some kind of high level things that I thought about.
Yeah. And guys, like your first book, and I love that you touched on it. This is not an encyclopedia. It's not Atlas Shrugged where it's going to take you forever to write this, right? And what I would love to actually get your thought on this is, what was the matrix of success? How do you find success when it comes to writing that book? Because I always try to tell people is that like success is, you need to define it for yourself, because otherwise it's imposed on you every single day, especially with social media.
No question. Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you what I thought it was at first. I thought at first it was getting a book deal. And, I'm in the process of writing my second book now with Portfolio Penguin Random House. So I went with a larger publisher on this book. But that first one, I was trying to get a big, a deal, because I thought that's what you did. And I thought that's that's how these things needed to get distributed. And I'll never forget, a friend of a friend called in a favor to a book agent. And the guy just said, you're a strength coach writing about communication. One, what is a strength coach? He's like, nobody I know knows what that is. Two, that is a book on communication from a strength coach. That's never going to sell. The guy basically just told me, like, piss off, you're not worth my time. And that was a really big wake-up call to how many people just weren't aware of the performance community. Meaning you saw folks from the military crossover, the medical world crossover, you saw all these people cross over, but the field I was in at the time had never seen that. So that was a really big roadblock, and I thought that was going to be success. Well, it wasn't, but that actually kind of helped me. Anybody that's taken our drives quiz on artofcoaching.com/what drives you, I'm an adversity drive. So when that guy just kind of pissed on my dreams, pardon my language, I'm like, you know what, man, you're wrong. People are going to care about this book. And then the biggest thing was, could I open people's eyes? There's no sales figure or whatever, because I had no idea what that would have been. I do know a lot more about that now, and we can get into that if you want in terms of, what are typical numbers in some circumstances or whatever. But the book now is sold over 500,000 copies and is translated in 5 languages. If you were to ask me then would I have needed that to constitute, success, the answer would have been no. I would have said, I want to start another conversation. I want to make sure people understand the job ain't done yet just because you know X's and O's or the science of what you do. I want stuff to be able to build off of this. If I can make a statement, make it decently well, and make a platform or a foundation to build more off of, I think that's success. And then, as you know, just getting it out there, right? There's so many, like, to not be the average person, it's worth just actually composing something. The average person just complains and whines and everybody else is an idiot. When in reality, if you've never just put your guts out there and said, good, bad, or indifferent, this is it, you don't deserve to be a critic. Because what's your talent? Like Eminem says, what's your talent? Critiquing my talent? And then also, just to be more understanding, and I'll end it with this, anybody that's writing a book, you don't get to just do whatever you want. Even in my book right now, right? I've been told by my publisher, hey, you've got to take this out. This has too much research. You need more anecdotes here. Like, give people the benefit of the doubt. Every single person, whether it's me, you, the person listening, Ryan Holiday, Malcolm Gladwell, whatever, we are all subject to constraints. Conscious coaching couldn't be more than 300 pages. It couldn't have a certain amount of references in it. It couldn't do a lot of things. It couldn't get printed in hardcover. Now it can, but Amazon wouldn't allow it. My second book can't just be that, so put stuff out there and have that growth. The metric of success in another way is growth. So hopefully I've given a wide variety of answers for a variety of your listeners.
No, I love it, man. And I think just to kind of narrow it down to all you guys who have your own practice as you're listening to this, like the way Brett is viewing his first book is how I view our discovery call. It's like, for the first book, it's a conversation starter, just like the first phone call. The first phone call, the goal of that first phone call is to have a second phone call. And then a second phone call to a third phone call until people actually truly understand how you can help them and how you guys have aligned values. And that's you know what, let's have this conversation. Let's keep going. Let's build this relationship a little bit deeper. And I think a book is just a conversation starter at mass, if I have to sum it up. And that was my objective measure when it comes to like writing my ACL book. What I do love, man, is the constraint aspect. Just because I think about this all the time is that on my path to my journey right now, how I grew is based on the constraint that was placed upon me, which some of them was not, by myself, but most of it is just imposed on me by external factor, right? Let's talk about some constraint that was placed upon you. Obviously, based on your story as when you were a teenager, that was a constraint. As a successful business person right now, what's some constraint that you have faced in the past that like made you who you are right now within the past 2 to 3 years?
Okay, just with it. So not counting nearly losing my life, just the last 2 to 3.
Well, I mean, that's in the book. So I want people to buy the book to read about the life-changing thing.
Yeah.
But then within the past 2 to 3 years from the business context.
Yeah, well, let's talk about this. I mean, again, I'm writing a book right now with Penguin Random House, right? I'm under contract. When I wrote my first book, that was on my own time, right? Now I'm literally legally under contract to turn in a first manuscript by a certain amount of time, or I don't get paid, right? And not only that, I'm in breach of contract. I can own money. So think about this. In the last 2 to 3 years, and if we even expand it to 5, not only have I moved cross country, my wife and I went through IVF. I've had 2 surgeries. I had COVID twice. I have to travel on average 65 to 85,000 miles a year, speaking and presenting at conferences and clinics. We've scaled our team. We're parents. My wife and I work together. She left her job, right? And we have a decentralized remote staff, right? And I'm also trying to get my doctorate at the same time, trying to be a new parent at the same time doing these things. And so I'd like to think that makes me a lot more like the average person. I think it's amazing. So anytime I bring up another example, this isn't me being rude or anything, but like, let's say we look at J.K. Rowling or Ryan Holiday or Robert Greene. Robert Greene was kind enough to come on our podcast. They get paid full time to write, right? Like J.K. Rowling could abscond to a castle. I'm not saying that she doesn't have constraints. Everybody in their life has stuff, but like these people oftentimes can go to different places, and that's what they do. I've got to keep my business going while writing, while being a parent. All of our parents, my wife and I, our family lives in Nebraska. We don't have them here at our every whim. So we've got to balance a lot. I'd love to tell people out, and this is why I want to encourage any of you listening. If you think that, you're going to just give this clean schedule, you get to wake up and wait for the muse to come, you're crazy. Like there were days that I had blocked off and scheduled, and I've done what all these productivity gurus say. And then you know what? We get called by the daycare. My son's got the flu and we've got to come pick him up. My entire day of writing is done. And then I've got to call my publisher and say, hey, I'm going to be delayed because my wife's sick, my kid's sick, or I'm sick, and then I'm out of town. So from family members dying to having a kid to getting COVID to running a remote team to trying to do a doctorate, a book, and a business, man, like my entire life is one big constraint. I think the thing that I'd say that's hopefully is empowering to people is that also just kind of makes you whittle shit away. Like I can't afford perfectionism at this point in my life. That doesn't mean I can't afford attention to detail. And that's not me saying I don't pay attention to quality. It's that a lot of this bullshit that people talk about, imposter phenomenon, perfectionism, it's self-handicapping. It's thinking a perfect scenario is going to come. You're never going to have the perfect scenario. You're never going to have enough time. You're never going to have enough money. You're never going to have enough anything. You've just got to write. You've got to figure it out. And you're going to have to go and your stuff will be better for it if you listen to those constraints.
Yeah, I love that, man. You get me fired up. Like, it's always taking me back to Jerry Seinfeld, right? Where he would wake up. He's like, what do? I write a joke every day. No matter when I feel like it, I still do it, right? So now obviously you guys heard he's doing a lot. My question to you, and I've been on this journey myself, is always going on that 80-20 rules and just focus on my 20 that actually move the 80%. So how do you come up with your 80%? Because you're doing a lot already. There's a lot on your plate. How do you prioritize your schedule to make sure that you move the biggest needle each day?
Yeah, well, right now it's clear it's the book, right? Having that, it took a very long time. This is 3 years to get a contract with essentially the second biggest publisher in the world, and what that can do, especially since we've crossed over from, early days being centered around helping performance coaches, physios, all that. Now we help more than 30 professions. So like for me, I do have to cut back on my mentoring clients. I've had to cut back on my speaking and all that because at the end of the day, if I don't get the book turned in, I'm basically neutering one of the largest distribution deals we could have, right? And so, but at the same time, I've got to honor those contracts. We got a 3-day event this weekend, right? Depending on when this releases. We have our speaker school in another week after that. So I have to go literally try to murder those things, be as prepared as possible, code switch and go. So anyways, for right now, it's really clear. It has to do with our business goals. Obviously, there's financial goals, and then there's the larger impact, and that's in no particular order. The book comes first right now. I'm obligated to do that. That makes the biggest moves for our company. 2, the live events and people that we're committed to. So my one-to-one mentoring, folks like you we're collaborating with, that's all there, and then 3 has to be staff. And I'm not putting family in here because that's inherent, right? We're talking business right now.
Yeah.
Right. Anything else to that, like right now, I'm not. So to make it even more concrete, what I'm not doing is I'm not doing as many one-off speaking events. I'm primarily running our workshops. In the last 5-10 years, again, I would travel 20 to 25 times to go do keynote presentations. Now it's kind of like, hey, we're doing our stuff. I'll maybe do 3 keynotes a year. And some of those are for my nonprofit that I'm a part of and I sit on the board, but I've got to get the book. I honor my clients, my live events right now, and it's our company first. So we had to be a little bit more selfish. I know that term gets a bad rap, but there's a reason the airlines tell you to put your mask on first to help other people. Our company needs to be more selfish right now, to be more selfless, because we're trying to grow and do really good things. Does that answer your question in a really tangible way?
Oh yeah, 100%. And I mean, again, you're making me look good because I'm always talking about putting yourself first, like putting self first rather than selfish.
You have to.
Because
you're right.
The way I look at it is I can't be a good husband if I'm literally not in the best place, right? I can't be a good CEO of my company if I'm not in the best place. And that's what I'm trying to tell everybody is like, it's okay to take care of yourself because if you can 10x yourself, guess what? Now your time, that 1 hour you spend with your team, you're going to 10x their day. Like if you have 10 people, that 100x, right? I mean, it makes so much sense. So I want to kind of go back from the book into the course, right? So obviously the book is a conversation starter. And now you have a course where we're hosting conscious coaching and you have the art of coaching. The whole thing just branches to a different thing. Can we talk about how the book turned into a new opportunity, but also is symbiotic and it works together, right? Because most of the time when I get to work with an entrepreneur, they say, oh, I just accomplished this thing. Now I'm going to go do this other thing that has nothing to do with the first thing. And I think me watching you from the outside perspective, everything that you do is all related to one another. So how do you create that framework and how does that all align?
Yeah, well, I'm really big on just, I think one of the keys to, depends how people measure success, I think effectiveness is being able to see the connecting dots across seemingly disparate ideas. So just to give your audience frame of reference, right? I did conscious coaching in 2017. 2018, I created an online course called Bought In that built off conscious coaching. And this was like stuff that I couldn't share in there, and there was a weakness to it. I use the term strength and conditioning coach and all that a lot early on. Thankfully, a lot of people that were not coaches or strength coaches realized the stuff I was sharing there spanned everything. So thankfully that wasn't a limitation. But then after that, we did a course called Valued, which was about people that are stuck in their careers, because that was something people asked me after I went on my own is, how did you break out on your own? And then we created something called Blind Spot. Now, all right, now that you've taken control of your own career and got unstuck, how do you build, what are the starting steps of being an entrepreneur? I didn't really build a course around conscious coaching. A lot of this was an evolution of material. So after we did a book, we did online courses, because the framework there was create things that are scalable, right? I came from this profession that was very insular. Strength and conditioning has this clergy-like mentality, like don't advertise, not about you, selfless, blah, blah, blah. As if two things can't be true at once, as if I can't want to give my all to other people and still make sure that me and my family aren't sinking. So it went book, digital to create scalability. Then we went live events. Now, of course, I had already done one-off keynotes. I've always been doing mentoring and coaching, but our live events, just to focus on this, which is part of our business, we have the digital part of our business, we have the live events part of our business, strategic relationships, all that. The live events evolved naturally. First, people came to me to say, hey, I want to learn more about psychology, behavior change, power dynamics, the intricacies of communication. I have clients and patients that, I need to connect with, or I struggle with this, blah, blah, blah. Then it was, hey, by the way, how'd you do the business stuff? So that was evident. I mean, because our core product at Art of Coaching is progress. We just happen to help people make progress through understanding behavior change, psychology, and communication. Well, that's marketing. That's creating a business. That's understanding people's needs and whatever. So now we have a live event on not only behavior change management, leadership, conflict resolution, persuasion, but we have one on business. And then there were people that were like, well, haven't you been speaking for like 12, 13 years? I want to speak too. How do you do that? So that was obvious, like, oh yeah, we should create a speaker school course, which is what we have. So we listen to people, but the through line of all those, to go back to your point, Dr. Natty, is they're all related to communication. They're all related to understanding your audience's wants and needs, understanding how to get your message across to them, and doing so in a distilled, clarified, and personalized way.
I love it, man. It's so great because people come to you with a certain needs, and then once you're able to solve their needs problem, now you solve their wants problem. Like, what else do you want? What else do you want to do? Because you empower them with small wins throughout the ways. Like, once you empower people, now you got to buy in from them, right? And then from there, like, whoa, if you help me with this, can you help me with that? Can you help me with this next thing? So I love that. Going back to like the similarity between strength conditioning and also physical therapy or anything in healthcare, where it's very dogmatic to market, to share your story, to try to help people and create greater impact. And as you're breaking out into that mode and start your own business, what were some of the business skills, essential business skill that you have to acquire that you didn't have before?
Real simple, not going to be a sexy answer. Trust and letting go. I had to find people that I could trust, with our business, and we have a remote staff, and that required a lot of patience, right? I thought even if I put together strategy as simple rules, heuristics, really clean, if you came and worked for Art of Coaching today, right? You're going to see a slide deck with our core mission vision. We have a brand deck. We have everything you like. If you need to know what font do I use, we got it. If you're like, what hex code is the red on the shirt I'm wearing, we got it. But the fact is it still just takes people time to grow. Being able to find people, because remember, like, we're not a strength and conditioning company. If anything, we serve far more physios than strength coaches. But a lot of my old network, it wasn't like if I opened a gym, I can throw a rock and hit 30 strength coaches and physios to hire for that. I need to hire business people. And it was tricky because I brought somebody in that had worked for somebody that had scaled this really massive business, completely different field, right? And all they did was come in and say, hey, for your business to be successful, you've got to pay a sales team. You've got to do this. She wanted me to spend like $1 million that I didn't have out of the gate, just building some team. And I'm like, time out. And she also wanted me to charge everybody like $15K. And it was like ridiculous. It was like, you're insane. Like, this isn't our audience. Like, yes, we are going to be more of a premium price place because we do really tailored bespoke events. but we're not charging people 15 to 20K to come to like a weekend workshop. You're crazy. And so it took a long time to find people, be patient with them, trust them, and then also just build everything we need, the infrastructure, so that if Becca needs to know how we respond to this kind of email, she has something that's got a canned yet personalized response and template to build off of. Letting go. Because also the other thing is I'm hands-on. I love being hands-on, not from a control freak, but I just like being in it. So being patient, being less hands-on, ironically, with some parts of the business, delegating, saying you've got to let them make mistakes, because here's a nugget I don't want your audience to miss. No matter how much time you spend teaching somebody or how much time you invest, right? They're going to be most convinced by ideas they believe to be their own, which means they've got to make the mistakes. They've got to go through it. You could give them a guidebook of how to run my business, and they're still not going to codify those lessons until they've made mistakes and been humbled. You know, for every person that's like, oh, I could do what you do, I could go speak, come run a 2-day workshop. And I love her. She was so honest. So one of our head directors, Allie Kirshner, the first one she did, she goes, holy shit. And this is a woman that won a national championship with Stanford. She had been a strength and conditioning coach for a long time. She gets long hours. She gets the grind. After her first workshop, she was like, unbelievable. Like, this stuff takes time. Mm-hmm. So people got to let go. They got to be okay with mistakes. And they need to understand that to a degree, entrepreneurship is a long-term commitment to suffering. If you don't have the stomach for it, don't play the game.
No, I love that, man. One of my core values is people, right? So, because I believe that with great people, with shared value, can accomplish amazing things. And, you know, I can't scale my team to where it is right now. And I can't help as many people to where it is right now by doing it by myself. And having great people around every single day is so cool to be able to come into my office and like get to talk to my team, my marketing team, my sales team, and like we'll all get fired up. Like that's to me, like I'm sure you and I are like in that sense where if you give someone 110, they give you 150 back, you're just fired up. You're just ready to go all day. And that's just 1 hour of like true intentional coaching people up. And to go back to your point, dude, I love this because I always think about when I grow my team or when I try to coach them up, it's like I give them a perimeter to fail. Where I know if they fail, it's okay. I can help them pick themselves back up. And I gave them almost like, I don't have kids, but I've seen this where like, you know, when you have kids, you want to say, hey, what do you want? Like, you don't ask them, what do you want to eat for dinner? You say, hey, between these two options, which one do you want? Right? Or, hey, what story
do you have
time?
Kids, by the way?
I don't, but I mean, again, I'm looking to have some, right? So I'm always
a great dad.
And one of those things like, hey, it's not like, what time do you want to go to bed? It's like, hey, what story time should I read you? And I think it's goes the same thing with employees where you give them permission to fail, but also give them parameter with that when they fail, it's not going to be a huge burden on them that you can pick themselves back up, right? Our role as a business owner, as a PT, as a coach, whoever you identify yourself as, and you're trying to make impact in society, is that you should always be Alfred to Batman. And Batman always going to fall. He's going to get his ass kicked. You got to be there, pick up, like, all right, Mr. Bruce, let's go home.
That's a great analogy. And people don't understand that the number two, seemingly number two, has a lot more power than the number one. You don't need to look any further than politics to see this. And I'm not talking about dipshit politicians, even the good ones or whatever, right? Like they have a whole team behind them. And a lot of times, and so you have to have that. Unfortunately, you know, just no matter, I do want to say this, no matter what anybody says and no matter what system you buy into, whatever, hiring's really hard. And it never really gets easier. It can get easier from a systems, logistics, onboarding standpoint, but finding really good people just is tough. You know, especially like I don't know about your organization, but we're completely self-funded, right? We're not going to go in and all of a sudden, we're going to pay you $300K a year to leave away to come. You know, I used to love that podcast, How I Built This. Yeah. And then I had to quit listening to it because I'd wait for the golden nugget, and it was always like, oh, my friend left Amazon and helped us run logistics, or you find out that somebody's dad or brother's sister was the co-CEO of Ticketmaster. And you're like, come on. That's like what in movie producing, they call it Deus Ex Machina, where you don't know how the good guy's going to get out of this. And then all of a sudden some artifact or special feature saves the day. That's not the reality for most of us. We don't have parents that work for, you know, Alibaba that are going to infuse us with capital. And so you've got to find a lot of things that get creative, and you've got to help people see the long-term horizon. I don't want people to come work with us at Art of Coaching if they can't see a 3 to 10 year horizon. And I get that that's tough for people. I get it. But, if you can't see yourself working here for at least 3 years, and frankly, just as a bonus ad for your audience, I'm sure you do the same thing. It's why we structure a lot of our compensation around that. We are going to do this graduating scale where, this is not just, oh, it's Christmas, you get a bonus just because it's Christmas. That's not how it works for us as a business. We all want to eat from the same pantry, but that takes a lot of work from all of us. And if you don't have a long-term mindset, you're not going to do it. But if you just think you're going to come in here $120,000 a year or $100,000 a year and not actually have to bring something to that company and bring that revenue or bring opportunity costs somewhere else, you're wrong. You don't just get bonuses. It's like participation medals, right? You don't just get bonuses and all these benefits for showing up and doing your job. So finding people that get that, want to do the hard work, see it as, understand that it's going to be hard, but man, is it rewarding, especially in the communication space, much like with what you guys, think what you guys do. You get people out of pain, you give them in many sense their lives back. Well, on our end, right, poor communication is one of the one things in life to make any situation worse. And so we look at it as if people come to us, we can enhance their personal relationships, their professional relationships, their sales numbers. So yeah, that's rewarding. Come do the work and let's get going. But hiring is very, very hard. That's why I didn't say, oh, that skill. Yeah, you always get better at it, but it always kind of is just different varying degrees of suckiness.
Yeah, and I love that you touched on that because again, like you, we're not we're all self-funded, right? I maxed out my credit card when I first buy my treatment table and all of that stuff. And hiring does get easier because I think the tolerance you have for getting the wrong hire is higher, right? Because you kind of give yourself a little bit more grace of hey, if this were to go wrong, I can kind of see what is going wrong, and you can spot it a little bit quicker, right? You're they're not going to make it to 90 days, maybe by 30 days. And then after that, my favorite sayings, I say to my ops manager, Christy, I was like, hey, tell me where the bodies are. As soon as we make a bad hire, because we know now we have to pivot, right? And there's also a cost of inaction of not hiring people. So that you always I think what's cool about being an entrepreneur, you have option, right? There's an option to take action, and then you got to live with a consequence. There's also an option of not taking action. There's also consequences for that as well. So either way, you get to
and
pick.
That's worse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one of our clients right now, it's taken us a year to really convince him, dude. I'll call him Bob. Bob, you've gotta pay and hire more people. And Bob kind of prided himself on just, well, I'm a grinder. I've done this. I've built this, and nobody can really do it like me. And he meant it humbly, but just with a false sense of pride. And this is a prime example. You could say, well, Brett, don't you teach persuasion, power dynamics? You couldn't convince this guy within a year. No, because to a degree, the student appears when the teacher appears when the student is ready, right? You can use every technique and tactic in the world, no matter what we're looking at, right? Whether it's PT, whether it's strength and conditioning, whether it's coaching in general and leadership, people have to be receptive to change. And it wasn't until this gentleman finally burnt himself out, finally tasted his own blood, metaphorically, right? Getting punched in the face, where he's like, I can't do this. It might cost me my marriage. It might cost me this. And by the way, if you're listening, nothing wrong with that. We all go through that. You heard me say my wife and I, we work together. We've gone through challenges in our marriage. We've gone through challenges in our business. Would you trust somebody that hasn't? You say, let me know where the bodies are. You show me one person that's got a perfect marriage, a perfect business, a perfect whatever. I'll show you 3 people that are absolutely full of shit. You know what I mean? And stuff is way worse beneath the surface on people that fake it, that just say, hey, I'm not 10Xing my business right now. We're struggling, but we're going to get back on boat. That's totally normal for those of you listening.
Yeah, no, I think there's also season for everything, right? You don't have to be grind season all the time. There's season where you're like, hey, you know what? Let me work on myself. Let me work on my marriage. And to me, I was able to see the Iron Cowboy. I forgot James Lawrence. He gave a keynote speaker, and then he was a keynote speaker. He said one thing that's always stuck with me was no amount of external success will compensate for internal failure at home. And I'm like, done.
Right.
That's all I needed to hear. And I think this is extremely powerful. We kind of need to know what we're doing it for. At the end of the day, I lost my dad in 2019, so I knew whatever I accomplish, I can't take it with me, right? Because time is extremely valuable. And to kind of piggyback on what you were saying before, as with hiring, and I like to say it's talent acquisition, right? Because if there's one LeBron's, one Kobe, you need to acquire those talents. And I think the more you can speak on your message, become a better speaker, the more you can articulate your goal, your mission, your vision, when it comes to your company, the company brand actually grew and you actually start attracting people into your world a little bit more. So can you speak on that? Because I knew you has, evolved your brand, your vision, the way you speak, the way you articulate. Talk about the impact that has as a side effect of how many people are in your world now that otherwise would not be in your world.
Sure. I mean, straightforward, just communication, once again, is the reason we are on the top of the food chain. The problem is like sex, most people think they're better at it than they really are. And you ask people, this is all part and parcel of my PhD. You ask people, how do you rank yourself as a communicator? Which if you can't, like, part of being an effective communicator is literally taking an idea. Like, if you were to think about these as several like bubbles, right? There's what you think. There's what you're actually able to put into words. There's then what you actually are able to, like, what you say to other people. But then there's this huge chasm of what they actually understand, and words only account for 7 to 15% of their perceived understanding. So that's why a big reason, like, for us to even say, like, yes, we know communication matters, but most people sadly don't train it and evaluate it. And there's great research. We're going to speak to the research here in a minute, but just 6 points on the cost of poor communication in the literature. One, a myriad articles that talk about the negative influence on individual physical and mental well-being, to the point that it is linked to the same kind of all-cause mortality risk as obesity, smoking, and a lack of sleep. Poor social relationships, poor connection. You saw that during COVID, social atrophy. You also see that when people are locked up in solitary confinement. Now, nobody here is getting locked up in solitary confinement, hopefully. But when you're not able to articulate a message, craft, shape it, and analyze it and all that, your business might be in solitary confinement because no matter how good you are at what you do, it's not reaching your target audience, right? And sometimes it's really simple things. And we get paid as a consultancy for this, almost like a marketing firm. People will say, like, this isn't working. We need to know why. And we help them generate different messages for that because we have an outside perspective. You see all across the board, decreased credibility and trust in a meta-analysis from 1997-2008, heightened anxiety and depression, degraded learning, decreased cohesion and efficiency, and then also increased lawsuits across all professions. So that's another thing is you want to play offense, defense. There are a lot of companies that end up getting themselves in really bad legal trouble because they're not really paying attention to what their message is. Not to mention on the personal note, the fact is there's a direct correlation between social connections, communication quality, and suicide rate. So you're looking at something that as AI continues to get more and more proficient at handling the technical, tactical X's and O's, a lot of it, the quality of people's businesses and just lives in general are going to lean on the communication, the intangibles, the stuff that AI is not going to do as well. Because anybody that's used ChatGPT knows that ain't just going to generate, oh my God, mind-blowing marketing. It's still going to be the effectiveness of a tool like that is still going to be predicated on, how strategically you think, how well you can prompt it and communicate it and whatever. That's why I love this right now. There are so many people that thought they were going to get by with letting ChatGPT do the work. All it's done is shine a spotlight on people that are even more foolish because you can tell it's not good. And so, yeah, people really have to. Communication will sink your business. Red Bull, last thing, Red Bull, famous case study, 2014, was sued because somebody said, I drank Red Bull, it didn't give me wings. So if you go and look at their advertisements now, it says Red Bull gives you wings, IIINGS. $13 million paid out for something that basic. Another thing, Ronaldo took a Coca-Cola bottle at a press conference, moved it to the side, grabbed a water bottle, said, drink agua. That moment, $4 billion in market cap dropped off Coca-Cola's stock. Communication and getting it wrong is absolutely catastrophic. Yeah, we still live in a world, Dr. Natty, where people will pay $3 to $5 grand to go learn how to swing kettlebells, do upper, lower quarter and all that, which is great. Do that. Do your thing. But then if you interact with humans and you're not actually training and evaluating how you interact with humans, what business do you have talking to other people about asymmetries when look at your professional development? So that's where and I say that in a convicting way, because we need to wake up as a society. We're not exactly getting along better. We're not exactly getting closer to understanding each other. So you've got to grow in this aspect. Just bottom line, it's the most important part of your business.
I love that. Like my background was in the food business, right? My parents had a Thai restaurant, so I was always in food. Like I know interaction with people, and what I love when you mention like all the technical know-hows of like, hey, all the CUs, all the things you have to do. To me, that's like the chef knowing how to make great meals. But if you don't have a waiter to bring that meal to the consumer, then you have no restaurant, right? So communication skill to me is like a waiter, a really good waiter that can make people feel comfortable, that can bring out like a nice wine to pair with the food to make the experience even better. So like, again, we talk about investment in education, and to me, investing in yourself, especially when it comes to communication, to make your points a little more concise so you can build rapport. There's limitless when it comes to the ROI when it comes to that.
And just to build off that real quick, right? To borrow your analogy and kind of modify it a bit, let's use a waiter or let's use a chef analogy. Them even knowing how to cook and do all those things and make a great meal, that's like the starting point. You need to know how to do that, right? This is what people misunderstand. I don't care whether you're a PT, a strength coach, whatever. The X's and O's and technical parts of your craft, that gets you the door. That gets you the conversation. Like, congratulations, you can do it. It's the conceptual problem solving and the interpersonal that now take you to the next level. And you see this, just so people don't think that I'm making weird, like grandiose claims. One, see the research of, I don't know, common life or common sense in life. But two, Gary Uckel, the University of Albany, who's probably the leading researcher in the leadership and managerial space for the last 50 years, shows very clearly that as you move up to, manager, director, CEO, whatever, the more important interpersonal skills and problem-solving skills get, and the less you have to rely on the technical tactical. Obviously, you have a workforce on that. There are strength coaches and therapists and ATCs and whatever, however, they will literally sit there and argue about modalities so much beyond a point that they don't realize that if they were in a room of 20 other people as skilled in those things as they are, they don't have any differentiation because nobody in there has worked on the other part of it. So the research makes it clear. If you want to go further in your career, if you want to increase earning potential, if you want to decrease litigations, lawsuits, you actually want to increase overall return on investment, no matter how they look at it, there's no way around it. Those with better interpersonal skills go further, earn more, and have more stability.
I love that.
It's the most transferable skill in the world.
I want to add on to that. I want to even ask you a follow-up question. So we all saw all this job cuts, and every time they do a big layoff, it's always middle manager, right? In your personal opinion, do you think they cut middle manager because they maybe have less interpersonal skill when it comes to communication? That's why they keep the top and the bottom?
Think about it this way, all right? Because there's a difference between communication skills and interpersonal skills. Communication skills are, tonality, tempo, verbal, nonverbal, right? Interpersonal skills are really more along the lines of what we call in Art of Coaching social agility. Communication skills are one part of social agility. Power literacy and power dynamics skills are another part of that. And then what we call contextual competence, knowing how to adapt to different situations, is another part of that still. So to be really effective interpersonally or to have true social agility, you need to be able to read situations. You need to be proficient in communication, but you also need to understand how to navigate power dynamics. Many middle managers, right, they're missing some piece of that puzzle. Whereas some of the most effective leaders, right, and we're not getting into like grandiose, weird examples because one person was like, well, what about Hitler? Don't be that app, right? There's N equals 1 on every end of the spectrum. But if you want to be the most effective leader you can, you need power literacy, communication proficiency, and contextual competence. Those together, right, create social agility. Much like we have to have great movement quality relative to everybody's constraints and anatomy and biomechanics to build the foundations for performance, right? You don't want a Ferrari engine and a Volkswagen frame. I got to make sure the athlete can squat and move and, deal with the environment to be able to build layers of proficiency. So that is why, and of course, every situation is different. This could be different for people in China. There might be somebody that, or kind of Russia or anywhere else, Pakistan, pick a place, throw a dart. There are people even in America, they have all the social agility in the world, but organizationally, right, they might be in some really weird constraint, or culturally, they may have some obstacles that they can't serve, and that's a bigger conversation, right? But we're trying to build social agility, because otherwise, I mean, you could put, just to be devil's advocate to my own comments, somebody could be great at communication skills and be nothing more than an eloquent dick. They don't know how to navigate power dynamics and all that. People have to get out of their own heads and quit beautifying and making these terms so, it's just like we need to get back to brass tacks and say we can all get better at how we deal with each other and ourselves.
I have one more question for you, and I love this question, is that if you have to, give shout out to a mentor or a book that you would recommend, just one book to the listener, what would that be and why? Or who would that be?
Yeah, no, I'm not going to do my parents because obviously they're a mentor. Love my parents, really grateful. I never had a mentor that put their arm around my shoulder, anything like that. I never had a formal mentor. I had situational mentors. I learned from everybody, whether it's my mother-in-law, my next door neighbor. But if you're saying, hey, one book, if you're saying, Brett, we want one book, and if I'm not mistaken, that's what you said. I think one that just helped me really kind of start to put vocabulary to things that I was interested in is shortly after I was out of the hospital, I found Robert Greene's 48 Laws of Power.
Great book.
And this is a big reason I don't like traditional leadership stuff. Traditional leadership stuff makes it all sound like it's all, as long as you're just inspirational, charismatic, positive thinking, everything's going to work out. Well, history shows that not to be the case. The world is a messy, nasty place. And you do have to operate in the gray area. Now, Robert's book doesn't speak to that in totality, but it gives great examples of, just the fact that if you don't understand the way the world works, you're going to get taken advantage of. And that was really kind of a Prometheus of me understanding, okay, now how can I take his work and make it more kind of research backed, make it more tactical for the everyday person so that those of you that are listening to this that have felt like you've gotten taken advantage of in your life, or, any other sticky situation that you wish you had a book for, what would that be? And that's what my next book, hopefully, Lord willing, will be. People can learn more by going to artofcoaching.com/book. But yeah, Robert Greene's work was just like, yeah, this is what I experienced in the hospital. Man, I've met some really unsavory characters in my life. I think what it did for me, the job to be done was it made me realize I'm not alone. Somebody else went through this. And by the way, it doesn't just mean I'm stupid. It just means the world is this really weird place and people have egos and agendas and emotions and you've got to navigate it. So I'd say Robert Greene, and that's why we really want to get him on our podcast as well. And I can say for anybody that's a Robert Greene fan, my experience, this was a situation where you do want to meet your heroes. He couldn't have been more supportive of what we were doing. He was kind, he was respectful, he was present. That was a true professional and I was really grateful for that.
Yeah, I'm so happy you recommend that book. What a great book. To close this out, Brett, thank you so much for your time, man. I've learned so much just talking to you, and I love how fired up you get. I cannot wait to have you.
I get fired up. This is my life.
Yeah, I can't wait to have you in my clinic. And when we have a group of people, I know you're going to be even more. I've seen you in person, and I know the drill you put people through, and it's going to be a lot of fun, a lot of laughs. And I know people are going to have a transformative event that weekend when they're going to come in as one person, and when they leave that, my clinic on a Sunday when everything's done, they're going to be a whole different person and they're going to have a different perspective. They're going to learn how to communicate a little bit better. And I think overall, they'll have a better relationship with themselves of what permission they give themselves to do. So I appreciate your time, man. I cannot wait to see you again in person. Your wife has been great. She's awesome. Please tell her and say hello. Guys, the link to sign up is going to be in the show notes. So please do not wait. We want to fill this thing up fast. And I want to see you guys. I'll do some Q&A, sit down with Brett and all that stuff as well. So it's going to be really cool. Brett, any last minute thing that you want to, or last advice or anything you want to share to a listener before we close the show?
Yeah, just to speak to that real quick. Again, I'm asking you all to remember, there's nothing in life that can make nearly everything worse than poor communication, right? And so a big reason, I want to clear up some misconceptions, or sometimes people feel like that, is this course going to be inspirational? Is it? No, this is highly tactical. We're doing video reviews, peer feedback, all that, but that shouldn't scare you. This also isn't something where people are ripping you apart. This is a safe place to iterate and fail, right? We use this, think of it in motor learning principles. We use what's called Kolb's experiential learning. We want perfection. We want you to come up and make mistakes. We want to have conversations and say, hey, here's how you could have done this. What do you think about that? You give me that idea. Do all the things you see world-class performers do. They perform, they do some things well, they make some mistakes, they share ideas, they do it again. They perform, they make mistakes, they review it, they do it again. We're going to do so many things that are going to allow you to transition this stuff and transfer this stuff to your personal life, your professional life, your business. So it's not some dog eat dog, really, you shouldn't make a mistake atmosphere. It is not some huge conference room. We do small events. You get a lot of reps. Every question, we've had people come and just want to do role-playing scenarios about with their spouse, with marketing campaigns, with their staff, the way they talk to themselves. Everything's welcome. We can't wait to meet you. And the only thing I'd say after that is If you don't come, that's fine. But unlike things with strength and conditioning, and unlike things with my previous profession, right? There were plenty of people that aren't going to train, aren't always going to eat well. They're going to live to be 100. I can tell you this. At some point, poor communication is going to cost you something. A job, a contract, a relationship, or respect. You're either going to pay and invest on avoiding that on the front end, or you're going to pay on the back end. And that expense is a hell of a lot more. So I hope to see you. I appreciate you giving us the opportunity. I can't wait to rock and roll.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time. And guys, please go follow him on Instagram. I will tag him on the show note. And yes, see you in New Jersey.